It's good to be here with you all virtually. We are so happy. I've been looking forward to this month for a very long time. As you might have noticed, we are in Black History Month, celebrating Black history, and we actually got it started off right. As far as I heard, we weren't here. Deja and I weren't here, but Curly Wilson, CJ Wilson, financial aid's own bishop and preacher in residence. We heard that he brought the fire as usual. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Um, but yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is Black History Month. We have a great chapel program planned out for you all. And we're going to have an amazing speaker today in Ezekiel Azonwu, a really good friend of mine. And we're going to be interviewing him. Actually, Deja's going to be interviewing him. And we also got some future guest speakers, including some friends and some colleagues. We have Tyrone Nance, who is one of my friends back in LA, who led a historical, peaceful protest in the name of George Floyd, and it was an absolute amazing turnout. There's actual aerial pictures on Hollywood and Highland where people gathered peacefully to protest on George Floyd's behalf. And he has amazing stories of what God has been doing in his life as far as community development goes, and engaging in his neighborhoods, and just doing some great kingdom work there. We also have Eddie McAllister now. Eddie McAllister was voted last year's Redding's Citizen of the Year. And he is an amazing man of God. He can preach, but more than anything, he's so involved in Redding and in Shasta County, doing advocacy, doing justice work, and really just loving on the community on all different levels that are represented here in Redding. So just want to encourage you guys to just have some anticipation. We're going to have some great speakers, and it's going to be fire. Are you excited, Deja?
Very, very, very excited. Thank you, Jose. And thank you all for joining us on this bright and sunny Wednesday morning. We're just really excited to be with you all and to kick off Black History Month. Um, as Jose mentioned, we're going to be like highlighting and celebrating Black voices, and we just have some great things planned on behalf of Chapel. So I have a few announcements for you all. As you've heard, we have a community group called The Practice of Being with Jesus. It meets on Sundays at 11 a.m. And there are still a few slots open for that. So we can take up to 10 students, and there's a few more slots open. If you still want to be a part of it, they just had their first one this past Sunday. It was amazing. There was an email sent from Chapel with the details, or you can just email Chapel if you want to find out how you can be involved. Um, we also have the Alpha community group. Alpha typically met on Tuesdays, but they are now changing it to Wednesdays at 8 p.m. on Zoom. So an email was sent from Chapel yesterday with the details. But just so you know, Alpha is a great community group to find out, just kind of the basics of Christianity. It's a great place to just come and learn. You don't have to know a lot. You don't have to be well equipped in the Bible. You just get a chance to come and ask questions and find out more about what this is all about. So that's tonight at 8 p.m. And also, the worship team is still having auditions. We really need your help. We need pianists, we need guitar players, we need singers, we need whatever you have, is what we need. So, if you are interested in helping out with the worship team, please email Chapel so we can get you an audition. And you may be wondering, what would that even look like to help out with the worship team? Well, that would be Wednesdays and Fridays, helping us out with worship, but also the other events that we have throughout the semester, like Arise. We need people to help us worship the Lord. So if you are interested, if your heart is beating while I'm talking about it, if you've always wanted to do it, now is your chance. Email Chapel. We want you. Okay. And tomorrow we're having our first courageous conversation of the semester. It's happening at 7 o'clock on Zoom, as you know, because we are still in the purple. And the topic is on mental health. So that's a topic that we all could use some more discussion about. We have some great Simpson speakers, and there'll be a panel discussion, and you get chapel credit for going. So I highly recommend that you attend the Courageous Conversation tomorrow night at 7 on mental health. And our last announcement for the day tonight, we have an exciting event called The Huddle. Now, this is the first time this event has been held, so we're really hoping for, a good turnout and engagement. But when you hear about what it's about, I think you'll really want to join. So the huddle is tonight at 7 p.m. It's a workshop on masculinity, and Jose Palos, our very own campus pastor, will be leading that, along with his good friend Nathan Pritchard. In this workshop, they will be demystifying male stereotypes. They'll be talking about toxic masculinity. It'll just be a great opportunity to hear from two men of God who have, walked through these issues. They'll share their personal experiences. You'll get a chance to ask questions. And ladies, you can join too. If you just want to be a fly on the wall, this is your chance. Okay, guys, please come. Ladies, you are also welcome. And you'll get chapel credit for going. 7 o'clock tonight. Jose?
Yes, be there. This is definitely co-ed, even though the topic and the theme is geared towards men, and so. But we want to hear questions. We're gonna have a Q&A time. We want to hear questions from the ladies and the men as well. So please come. It's gonna be good. I'm looking. I get to have a great conversation with my friend via Zoom with you all. That's why I'm looking forward to it. He's a great conversationalist. Anyways, I get the honor. I love doing this. I love introducing my friends. I love it. It's I have some really cool friends. Really, really. As a matter of fact, they're the type of friends that if you Google, right, if you Google them, they're one of the first people that come up on a Google search. And as we are, kicking off our Black History Month Chapel program, I had to get my brother here. He actually he's a good representative of not just a Black American male, but a Black American family with him and his wife, his kids. I think he's got as many number of kids as there's books in the Old Testament now. What is that? That five in the Torah, right? You got a Pentateuch of kids uh, for all you Bible majors. Anyways, allow me to introduce to you Ezekiel Azonwu. Ezekiel Azonwu is most commonly known for his spoken word artistry. Him and I actually led one of the spoken word movements in Los Angeles. It was one of the biggest spoken word movements in the world at that time. He has then ventured off and started his own company in Poets in Autumn, which features some of the best poets that you'll ever see, not only best poets, but some of the best ministers. And so it's a lot of theatrical wordplay and poetry. It really provokes you to, have a deeper relationship with God, with people, understand things about culture and society. And not only that, but him and his wife have ventured off into um, redefining what family should look like, what kingdom family should look like. And it's just been a beautiful thing to see them evolve and transform and really challenge the status quo. I like to see it as they're not only living to that standard, but they've actually raised the bar, right, for all people from different races, cultural backgrounds, ethnicities to look at and be like, man, that's inspiring me. I want to live my life like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ezekiel Azonwu. He's right here. If you don't, he's wearing all black right there. Pin his little chat window right there. And then I also want to welcome up Deja Smith. Deja Smith, she is an amazing woman of God. She has her master's in education. She's also a poet. She's a teacher. She's an author. She has a book. Ezekiel and his wife also have a book. These are both authors. This is amazing. We're in the room with authors right here. She has a huge heart for women and the church, and she's making history. We're talking about Black history, right? And it's amazing to be with people that are making history as we speak. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Deja Smith and Ezekiel.
Hey, thank you so much. And man, Paulos, man, he's such a good friend. He always pumps me up with these introductions. So I apologize for that long introduction, guys. Thank you, Deja. Appreciate you as well. I don't know if Deja had questions for me at first, but I just kind of like introduce kind of what I've been on. Like we always say, what you on right now? So I've been on like some different. God has really been putting a lot of stuff on my heart as of late. And in light of Black history, I just think it's really important to talk about these things. You know, I got to come from a place of scripture. It reminds me of Genesis chapter 4, verse 9. God asked Cain, where is your brother Abel? And he said, look, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? And I think that phrase was very telling of the state of the human heart. I mean, from the beginning, like God created mankind, yes, to know what it means to survive, but self-preservation has somehow evolved to this place that we have now prioritized self-preservation more than anything else. When he called out Adam, he's like, well, it's the wife that you gave me. And then he called out Eve. Well, it's the serpent that tricked me. And everyone in efforts to preserve themselves wants to absolve themselves of responsibility in order to spare themselves, to survive. And so this mentality permeated. We see Cain doing the same thing. It's not me. It's not my problem. Because if I can truly believe, if I can go under the illusion that this is not my issue, then I can absolve myself of responsibility and I can survive and I can keep going. However, God wanted to flip that on our head, on its head. He sent his son, Jesus Christ, and he said, look, I'm calling you to a different type of love. I'm calling you to love others just as much as you love yourself. He doesn't say, stop being in a mode of self-preservation. I created you to know what it means, to do what it takes to survive, to love yourself, to care for yourselves. But this is where he put a kink in our whole operation. He said, look, but in all you're doing and carrying and cultivating yourself, I want you to be able to replicate that love for others. So now we have responsibility. And the question that echoed from Cain can no longer justifiably be echoed when we're looking at issues of injustice, when we're looking at, at women's issues, and when we're looking at just human rights issues. We can't say that's not my problem, because God is calling us to a love that says, but I called you to love them like you love you. And so I'm on my brother's keeper mode right now. My heart is for men right now. My heart is for the men of this generation. I look at men, but I also look at Black men, and my heart goes out to the state of Black men in this country, state of Black men all around. And though we've made lots of strides, and there are so many Black men and Black families to be proud of, I feel like the stigma that is associated with us is not only projected when we deal with other races and people in different countries and even authorities, but it's also projected by ourselves. and the way that we deal with each other and the lack of responsibility that we feel for each other. So if we can be okay saying that I've made it, I got a degree, and you know, my family is good, the nucleus of my family is great, and I'm surviving on my own without nobody else. If that is our definition for success, then we have the wrong definition, and it's definitely not Christ's definition for success. In fact, this is the last thing I'm gonna say so I can let some questions come in. I started to realize, man, in having conversations about like race issues with people, I realized that sometimes we try to argue like, yo, that perception is racist. You know, we try to argue like, man, you're thinking like this, you can't see privilege, you're not empathetic with this and you're not empathetic with that. It wasn't until I was dealing with a relationship issue with someone else, I was like, man, you're dealing with a narcissist. And a narcissist's key element or key elemental characteristic is self-preservation above all. So even in a situation, it was a really crazy situation where the dude was even willing to harm himself because the girl was just acting crazy towards him. After that, she was like on his head, like, man, but you're still not giving me the type of love that I need. And I almost lost my mind. I'm like, how can this person not see that you almost committed suicide over her, but she's still saying, you could be a better man to me. It's just like, okay, that's narcissism. And so we end up on these Facebook debates and these IG conversations that explode, and you tell them, man, dude, women are being dealt with harshly in this country, man. There's a lot of issues with misogyny, and there's rape, and there's stuff like this. And somebody had just come out of the blue like, but men get raped too. Or, man, there's like all that's going on with Black people in the country, and you know, someone can literally just get killed before our eyes, and someone will say, but I had a hard time. There's no privilege there. Like, man, he shouldn't have resisted arrest. Like, this is a loud display of narcissism, which does not allow for empathy. Narcissism prioritizes self-preservation, because if I can remove myself from the conviction and the responsibility in this matter, then I can keep going. I cannot allow myself to be inundated by your pain. I cannot allow myself to cause myself to see your pain, because if I see your pain, then I have to find a way to say, how can I love in this situation? How can I give of myself in this situation? How can I think differently? How can I work on myself? How can I progress intellectually within this conversation? I want to absolve myself from that responsibility, because as a narcissist, the most important thing for me is, how can I get past this? How can I save myself, for lack of better words? And so this is what I'm preaching nowadays. I'm just like, man, first, we must destroy. So before I move forward, I'm like, man, there are some people that you're arguing that they're racist, but they may not be as racist as you think, but they're indeed narcissists, because a narcissist cannot empathize enough to find something in himself to say, okay, this is how I can see differently. Instead, they'll say, oh, well, blue lives matter too, and all lives matter. When in essence, what they're doing is trying to exonerate themselves. And so what I'm preaching today is just like, man, you are your brother's keeper. Find yourself in this. Even way back in Exodus, God said, I heard the cry of my people. And then he sent Moses, someone who was in comfort, who left his comfort zone to be with the people that he was trying to save. And so we, as believers, we that are trying to do better and trying to make change, we cannot remain in our comfort zones and say, yeah, we're chatting about it. We have to find ourselves getting uncomfortable, having the hard conversations, being amongst the people that we desire to love on and desire to help, because otherwise we're not being like the very Christ who left his comfort zone in glory and moved with people and wore the suffering and wept with the people and smelled like his sheep, to love and to show them what it looked like to actually move through this thing in a way that justice could be served. So I think that's what I'm on right now in my family. The pictures that we take, the things that we do is all centered around this idea that I am responsible to you to a certain extent. And so representation, advice, communities that we're trying to build in these events, and even the relationship games are all birthed out of this responsibility that I feel. I'm not single, so I don't really have to care about seeing what singles are going through, but I do care because I bear some responsibility. If God is taking me to see some things, then it's my responsibility to show those things that I'm seeing. And so that's where I'm at, Deja. If you got any questions, or if anyone else has any questions, you could throw them in the chat, or Deja, you could unmute yourself and let's get the conversation going.
Yes, Jose, I know you have some thought. I can see your face. You want to comment, so I'm gonna let you go ahead.
I just, all I wanted to say is that after, to everyone else, after Deja ask her questions, we want to leave some time for students to ask any questions, to ask Ezekiel, maybe even Deja, some questions over some of the topics that they're going to discuss. So when we do open up that time, go ahead and ask those questions in the chat box.
Okay.
All right. Well, Ezekiel, thank you for everything that you shared. Obviously, I resonate with so many things that you shared in that short amount of time. You know, being your brother's keeper, having empathy, you know, not being so inwardly focused. Like those are all really, really important things that we need to hear in this day and age, that we need for us to just be good human beings, like
Yeah.
flat out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just want to encourage anyone who has questions. Like Ezekiel and I are totally open. Send them in the chat. You get to ask a black man and a black woman, like whatever you want right now. Okay. So, my first one is pretty fun. I want to answer this too. My first question is, what do you love about being black?
Dang, man. That's cool. I mean, I guess being black has its perks. Like, and you look at everything that we can possibly go through in certain situations. I think, man, no one can deny that there is I think God has blessed black people with this cool factor, especially those that have come from, poverty and come from unfortunate backgrounds. There's something about knowing how to make something from nothing and creating situations that other people can look at and desire to replicate. Like there are certain things that we might have done out of just lack, and people can look at and say, you know what, that's really cool, man. And it's just, I've seen even within myself, not having resources and putting certain things together and allowing people to appreciate that. And I'm not trying to associate, this is more of a class conversation, but I think even culturally, we've seen like, I love to see African music be blasted by every culture and everyone being able to appreciate it. And some of the roots of where the music came from was literally people without the electronics to actually make it happen. And so I love to see Black people thriving from taking the little that they may have and making it something that everyone could appreciate, man. That's a cool thing for me to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think along with that, I love our resiliency, and just being able to, you know, make something out of nothing, but also to make things fun. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. I'm from New York. I lived in the DC area. I'm in California now. I've met Black people from all over the world. Somehow we all have the same sense of humor. We can make something out of nothing, and we make it okay. So
Yeah,
I love our culture. I
yeah,
love our people.
yeah. That's what's up. I love that.
All right. So my next question is, what are some of the challenges you face as a Black man?
Uh, Man, the list. I think the list goes on and on, just because I feel like no matter what, I feel like we're to get to where we would esteem as far. I feel like one of the greater challenges is the residue of what oppression has left behind from within the United States or amongst the diaspora, but even like culturally, there are so many cultural barriers. Both my parents are from Nigeria. And so colonization, the effect of colonization on the African mind is like, when I say done wonders, I mean in a negative way. I remember when I was online and I was talking about, Black issues, and I was talking about, hey, look, we have to do better and things like that. My dad like called me on the phone instantly and was like, don't you dare speak negatively about a white man. Don't you dare. If you want to make it in this world, don't speak a negative word about a white man. And I was just like, first of all, wasn't even talking about white people. Secondly, like, wow. Like, so now, like, it's this idea that, if you had a lot of conversations with him, the way that he would esteem the effects of colonization is really baffling. Like, the English that I speak is the perfect English. It's not American English. It's Great Britain. I'm like, Daddy, you know that. But it's like he's not processing it the way that he ought to. So much so that it creates this tension and divide between the African and the African American, because a Nigerian that comes to the States will never, because the ambition of the Nigerian man, we could talk about it another day, but they'll come here and they'll make more money than everybody in their neighborhood. They're super ambitious, but they'll look at the African American and say, you see, they're lazy. And this is coming from black skinned Nigerians. They're lazy. Like why can't they do what I did? And so even the ability to ride on the backs of what had been kind of prepared and fought for by African Americans, the African comes into the United States unaware of that fight. They don't even get taught Black history in Nigeria. They're not taught about what happened with the transatlantic slave trade. They're not taught about Dr. King, Malcolm X, and the struggle. They come here and they see homeless Black people and like, how can Black people be homeless? There are scholarships out here. And like, why aren't Black people all like living in mansions? Why are they disadvantaged? They have all the opportunities. They would speak as if they were, completely disengaged from all the Black struggle. And so for me, there are many struggles and challenges because I'm able to see both sides. And one of the fights that I'm fighting is trying to be that bridge, because I'm able to see both sides and be an educator in every setting that I'm in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's part of who you are. Your DNA is, yes, you are a Black American man, but you have that component of being a real African American. You are
Yeah.
Nigerian American, and I've had the privilege of being around many Nigerian Americans in my life, and it has. This is just, I'm saying this because people may not know. But it was a very interesting dynamic for me navigating the fact that although I'm a Black American, I thought that I could relate to other Africans who are American. They saw me in a completely different way. They didn't see me as an equal. They didn't always see me as family, whereas I could go anywhere in the world and see another Black person, kind of give them the head nod. When I saw an African person, because our culture is so different, they didn't see me the same. So I would imagine that navigating both of those worlds would be difficult. Uh,
Yeah.
so thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So this year for Black History Month, the theme is focused on the Black family. So every year there's a different theme for Black History Month, and it focuses on a different aspect of African American culture. And this year, the whole country and Canada is focusing on the Black family. And Ezekiel, you are a great representation of what it looks like to have a Black family. You have a beautiful wife. You have 5 kids, as Jose mentioned. I believe he said before, if you Google Black family, your picture pops up.
All right, beautiful Black family. If you Google beautiful Black family, I tried Black family and we don't show up.
But
You got to add the beautiful in there. You got to add the
yeah,
beautiful.
add the beautiful. Don't forget. But you do. You have a beautiful Black family, and I would just love for you to share, what it's like to have a Black family, what it's like to, you know, be a husband and a father? And with that, what are some of your hopes and dreams for your children?
Yeah, so one thing that is important for me is I really do appreciate, I mean, I think there's a purpose for, the notoriety that comes with me having the family and the pictures that people appreciate. Aesthetically, it's pleasing. But one thing I really desire to do with people, along with people seeing the beauty of the picture, I really want people to understand that it's not perfect. And anytime you talk to me and when you hear from my wife and when you hear from our situation, you realize, oh, okay, so it's possible to struggle. It's possible to have an imperfect life where it's possible to grow. It's possible to change and go through those changes and learn in a marriage. While it seems like it's perfect on the outside, it's okay to be imperfect. And so like the vulnerability side of things, I really overemphasize. And I don't want people to think that our lives are perfect. I don't want people to think that we have a perfect, beautiful cookie cutter family. It's just not, it's not the truth. And if people are aspiring for something that is false, then people will fall flat on their faces trying to achieve something that, was just never, they were never supposed to achieve. And I think being us is what we can be proud of. We're okay with the fact that, hey, look, these are my quirks, these are my flaws, but we work it out. We love each other. We get along. We're learning. We're growing. So that's one. And for my kids, man, I really want them in the household to be able to see, hey, this is what it looks like for a daddy to love mommy, for a man to love his wife, and for a wife to love his husband, love her husband. This is what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. Like it's not just overly romanticized and just kisses and just hugs, but it looks like listening to each other, having hard conversations, being honest to each other, enduring hard times, having things have to face us and them watching us have to navigate moving from the West Coast to the East Coast, how we deal with our families when some people get on our nerves, when a mother-in-law may be coming foul and one person has to say, don't talk about your mom like that. That's your mom. Just hearing us be open about conversations like that for our kids, them seeing that vulnerability part and looking at love more holistically rather than learning what it looks like from TV or whatever the case may be. So I want my kids to see that. And yeah, man, I think that is super powerful because then they can appreciate and own their identity and grow and expect more within their own identity framework, if that makes sense. Like, man, I can be me and I can go high and I can achieve more, but I don't have to deny who I am to do that. And so that's important to us.
Yeah. I asked that question because, for those of you who don't know, Black families typically aren't represented in popular media and in culture in a good light, if they are represented at all. So it's so important for Black people to have accurate depictions of healthy families. Um, and just statistically, a lot of us don't come from healthy families. We don't get to see the dynamic of a man and a woman being married, staying married, being committed, raising a family together in a household. Unfortunately, just because of the effects of slavery, colonization, you name it, the family dynamic of African Americans has been completely lacking, and it's led to so many other harmful things, such as abortions, and there's high crime rates and things like that. So having a Black family being represented well is so important. So I'm really glad that's the focus of Black History Month this year. And all right, my next question, Ezekiel. Now, this is a fun one for me. Is what is it like being married to a Black woman?
Woo. Um. So, man, so that's a good question, and so I could say something here that we just had a conversation about online. It was that before before I got married to my wife, I was I was committed to marrying. Like, I want a woman of God. I want a woman of God, and at the time, because of who I had dated, but more importantly, because of the African men in my life, they were just kind of pushing me to say, hey, look, man, you got to be careful about the Black African, they call it Black American, that's what they say, about the Black American woman. They don't stay married. They, you know, just all these things like about Black American women. So I was just like, okay, well then I have dated Black American women. I didn't stay with them. So man, maybe my wife is not in America. Like there's no way that God can have an American woman for me. So, and I had this thing in my mind. I was like, okay, my wife's going to be like this. She's going to be super meek and she's going to look like this. And, you know, she might be from this country or that country or whatever the case may be. Everything that I thought or I had lined up in my mind for my wife, like God, like balled up that list and he threw it out and he gave me the blackest woman that I could ever have dreamed for. Like all that meekness and stuff like that. She was not that. The great thing about it is like, I believe that God wanted to make me like an ambassador. I'm like an ambassador for Black women now. Like there were certain things that I could not empathize even with my younger sister until I married my wife. And so some of the struggles and, you know, even the fact that she, you know, my younger sister is dark skinned, like until I married my wife, I didn't realize like, man, the stigma attached to dark skinned women and her struggle, even growing up because she had a different father, her brothers and sisters didn't make her feel that welcome because her skin was dark. And I mean, if outside of the culture, if you may not know about colorism, it's a real thing. Even to this day, like the best of the best men that I would consider great men, like Black men, for some reason, look at dark-skinned women as like second rate. And so like, I feel like I'm such an ambassador right now. I'm like, look, man, like if you can't see this beauty, I'm about to put it in your face. And I think that's partially why, like I champion my wife. I champion women, all women who look differently, especially darker skinned women. And so being married to a black woman is just, it's super, it's empowering to me because now I feel like, shoot, man, I am an ambassador. So it's done something more for me than I think it's even done for her. Like it's made me empathize in ways that I never would have until I actually I live in a house with the catalyst of my ambassador mission. So that's it's doing good things for my mind and my heart.
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't gotten to talk to Kiana in person,
Yeah.
but just from, you know, overhearing conversations and Jose and Marcy speaking so highly of her, she's nothing to mess with. She's the truth. I like her.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
no, I kind of want to talk to just really quickly, just for anyone who may be confused or who may not have heard of the term colorism before. I just want to speak to that really quickly. Um, so, a little bit of backstory in uh, times of slavery, when you know Black people were oppressed, those who had lighter or fairer skin got better treatment, is the short version of the story. They got treated better on plantations, they got treated better out in society. There were literally paper bag tests that if your skin was lighter than a paper bag, that you could, you know, go into certain places, do certain things. So with that, it created a lot of division between the Black community with people who have fairer skin and people who have darker skin. And then from there, it evolved to preferences with men who just feel like they would prefer a woman who was a lighter complexion. Um,
Mhm.
it create has created a lot of dynamics between women who are lighter skinned or darker skinned, and especially the darker skinned women face, um, I wouldn't say oppression, but they definitely face a level of oppression that lighter skinned Black women don't face. They will face a lot of bullying. I know lots of my friends who were bullied and called names because of how dark their skin was. And it's a dynamic in the Black community that exists. It's very painful and toxic. So if you haven't heard of colorism, do some research. It's real and it exists. Um, all right.
Sure.
So my next question, in what ways have you seen African Americans make history today, Ezekiel? Some of the ways.
Uh, I could any random. Oh, what is
Yep, any
this?
random. I know you're an artist, so I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Oh man. Okay, sorry, someone called me. Yeah, man, so many. Like even some of my friends, I I could celebrate so many of my friends that have just done extraordinary things. I feel like I'm part of that history. Like poetry has been something that I've been a part of, and even my friends alone, who have not only been people that can be looked at as poets, but authors, and they impact people worldwide. Like, when was a day? I think one of my friends, to be honest, YouTube YouTube started in 2007, and at the time when she came out with her poem "I Will Wait for You," that was the first poem, spoken word, to reach a million views. So I like that was something to be celebrated, because before that, I think the highest one was, I think it was something by Lauryn Hill, which had like 760,000 views or something like that. And after that, there's been a few more that have done it. But I think that's history right there, and that's a Black woman. And I have so many other friends that have done the same. Man, traveled across the world. We've been a part and helped create the a tour that is the largest spoken word world tour in history. So that is history. So I mean, so many things. Even my wife, like, she is a international hair coach, and she has clients all around the world that are learning how to grow their natural hair. And these are things that just like what was a hair coach in the 80s? It just did not exist. And so I'm loving to see the entrepreneurial mindsets that are coming to pass. There's so many great ideas, so many people in different positions that are making change. I don't want to talk about the people that's on TV and stuff like that we know, Olympics and the athletics, but I could talk about the people in my circle that are doing great things and impacting people's lives like right now. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't heard of I Will Wait, single ladies,
Yeah.
type that in YouTube. Let it bless your life. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. Genetics
Yeah.
kills.
Yeah.
Um, man, so I have another question. This is from one of the students.
Okay.
It's a two-part question. So, just bear with me as I get it out.
Okay.
How can the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ affect how Black people perceive themselves within their communities and personal lives? So, how can the gospel affect how Black people perceive themselves in their communities and personal lives? And then part two, how can Christ impact the outcomes of people living in a world under the control of the enemy until he returns?
Yeah. I Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm hoping that question isn't coming from a place that's saying, "Hey, look, now that we're saved, it's done. Like, you are bought with a price. Like, you were a slave, but you're no longer a slave. You're a slave to righteousness. Get over it." Kind of. It's not from there. I'm not accusing, but I've heard that sentiment come forward. So I think it's more, when we're speaking to the gospel, we have to look at the body of Christ. And the question really should be posed to the body of Christ. What is the body of Christ doing to share and to live and to love in ways that reflect Christ, that properly reflects how we should look at ourselves? Because it's not just about, hey, this is how, even with broken lenses, if I read the scripture, I interpret and say, hey, this may not be for me, because it's saying, okay, I can live life and live my life more abundantly. Or if steps of righteous man are ordered by the Lord, but it just feels like, man, while my steps are being ordered, they're shooting me in this place and that place. So it's like, okay, when I bring it to my pastor, he doesn't care about this, and he only preaches about this. So what are we doing collectively so that we can properly reflect who Christ is and how we should see each other moving forward? I think that it's a collective effort. I think, yes, there's an individual relationship that we have with Christ that says, that denies that we have to wallow and we have to, be in this sunken place that see like, woe is me, because we know that we have an eternal destination. But at the end of the day, if on a day-to-day basis the church is not living that out, if we're not mourning with those who mourn, if we're not grieving with those who grieve, and rejoicing with those that rejoice, and also living lives like the early church, that giving up whatever we held on to share amongst each other, like we're not going to see the progression and the true light of Christ that we're supposed to see via the gospel. And so I think to ask that question shouldn't be tossing the ball into the hands of the black man and say, hey, deal with it, you're saved, but rather, hey, how can we come together so that we can work through this together? How can we serve each other in the midst of this? How can we position ourselves so that we can be like Christ, to get our hands dirty, to listen to these stories, to be available to, and both parties come to the table without any judgment, without any attack, and understand each other. I think that's, I would appreciate that question, because it's not something that we just got to deal with ourselves because we are the church.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think along with that question, I would say that just being a bridge builder is always super important. You know, being a peacemaker and seeking to understand, especially as it relates to our own communities. So I can speak to the fact that, you know, sometimes in the Black community, we do have work to do. There's, you know, we may not always be on the same page. You know, there's things that we need to work out and get together. Um, and I think a lot of that just comes from being willing to have empathy, to hear other people's perspectives, to not think that you are right, you have it all together, but really being a bridge and seeking to understand above all else
Yeah.
is super key. Uh,
Yeah.
so thank you for that question. And all right, no more questions. But if you guys have any more, feel free to ask. Um, and my last question would be, and you kind of answered this already, but what impact have you made on Black culture?
Yeah. I feel like I have, like, a lot of the things that I do, without me saying it, like even the relationship cards that we have. This is one example. Like we're trying to create like this silhouette image for the relationship cards, and like the designer came and he made the relationship cards with the silhouette, and the silhouette was a silhouette of a white man and a white woman. And I was just like, I was like, man, everything that we do, like we've appreciated, and we've as a society in general have accepted. You know, Mr. Clean is gonna be white. Every superhero is gonna be white. Oh, thank, we got Black Panther. But we're seeing like, man, this is the standard. This is the general acceptance of what we should do. And he was like, man, if you keep the silhouette white, you'll be open to a broader audience. You're not excluding white people or other cultures. And I was just like, man, but why is it that when we see a Mr. Clean product, we don't feel like it excludes us? Because we've accepted a norm, and instead of saying, man, anybody could be on the cover of anything, we'll just use it. The only thing I can say about that is syrup, man. But they just changed it. But Auntie Mama syrup, everybody use that. But why do we have to feel like an image or a represented image excludes a body of people when we can accept every other icon or whatever the case may be? So I was just like, man, let's use like an afro having woman and a full lip man. And I'm not saying no, it's for everyone to play, but I'm not going to downplay us. I'm not going to hush us up in the name of just trying to, appease the norm or anything like that. So I think I put in a lot of effort to create for us without having to try to put up this wall or bridge to say, hey, look, everybody's welcome. But when I created this, I have you in mind. Like I'm thinking about us. I'm thinking about our struggles. I'm thinking about our concerns, and even the fact that we're dealing with so many people not getting married, and the family is broken. I'm like, man, everything that I do, I want to see how I can be a reparative hand. I want to add value to our community, and so I think like that. And so we have relationships games, we have relationship series that have never been done, and like everything that we're doing is, let's keep doing it. So I think that we're impacting people day by day.
Hmm. Yes. So Ezekiel has great resources. If you follow him on social media, you can get to see all that him and his wife have going on. And he has a series on YouTube, relationship series. Tell me the name of it one more time.
It's called The Whole Truth.
The Whole
Yeah, we
Truth.
have The Whole
I've
Truth
watched
and the
it.
Talkback series. Yeah.
It's good. It's good, guys. It's really good for singles. You get to hear good perspectives. And I'm not just saying it to hype him up because I watched it on my own without him telling me.
Hey.
So
Hey, thank
definitely
you.
recommend that. I have another question, Jose. I want to bring you in on this one. How do you see the relationship between the African American community and the Latino community
Ooh.
How do I see it? Or this is for Palos or me?
for both of you? Whoever wants to answer.
Oh, I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't think we're where we need to be. We have a long ways to go. There are times when we're in school that we used to have race wars, and it was brown versus black, and I still think like to this day there is just a disconnect. Not on every level. I think there is some sense of like if you're in the community, there are people that we roll with. But to a certain extent, man, a lot of from Chicago to LA to New York, it seems like everybody's living within their own pockets. And it's because of convenience and comfort, man. We're comfortable with who look like us. But this is not the job of every random person. It is the job of the church to normalize what it looks like to seek out others that don't look like us. Like it is easy. The story of the Good Samaritan was like, hey, look, who's your neighbor? The neighbor is who you've been conditioned to marginalize, conditioned to avoid. And so God is calling us to a love to call our neighbor those who 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 media, who our family has told us, hey, stay away from them. They do this or they do that, or they're not to be messed with. Like the church should be the standard of diversity out of this breaking out of our shells and breaking out of our comfort and seeking out those types of relationships. I am guilty. I'm sometimes just comfortable where I am. Sometimes I don't have a lot of white friends because it's comfortable to not have white friends because I don't live around white people. I don't go to a white church. My church is like all black, and I'm not purposely looking for ways to create conversations, even when I'm in the midst of people who look differently than me. But I think as believers, we need to start taking that mantle. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I a bridge builder? Yes, we are. So I'm taking the challenge as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think every person, every culture has norms, and I think some of the norms that have existed, in places where Ezekiel and I come from in LA, there's been generations of black and brown violence, and that we've just had to live with that, and then racism to go along with it, in our families, and hearing stuff from my uncles and aunts, and I had black friends in high school, and I would bring, my friends home, and, there was that eventually normalized, right? But in the beginning, it was like, oh, you don't understand what we went through, they would say with these people or whatever, right? Um, but I think that I don't know. I'm hopeful when I look out into the new generation. When I imagine my sons and my daughter, my son and my daughter really living as if this is normal. Like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, you guys had all this beef? Like, you guys are
Right.
crazy. And but
Yeah.
I do think that what going back to the original point that Ezekiel made in the beginning is that we have to assume the responsibility of being our brother and sister's keeper, and responsibility looked like for me back in like 2004 or five, going to all African American church. I was the only Latino there, aside from a couple other ones. And ironically, like our church was, in a part of LA that had like current black and brown violence. And we're talking about like we have Sunday service, and the evening before, there was somebody that was gunned down due to that black and brown violence. Thankfully, I can speak personally. I think I've seen some progress within our communities. When I was at a church, pastoring at a church in LA, we did black and brown marches with one of the largest Hispanic churches and African American churches in town, and so it is really putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. Um, yeah, and breaking those norms and being like, I'm gonna be my brother and sister's keeper.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I'll say one more last thing. I think the reason why I'm an advocate for Black American communities right now is because, like Dr. King said, is there can't be justice for all if there's not justice for this group of people. If like we have to stand up to injustice everywhere, and I believe that you find it in the Bible, and if you spend enough time with God, you realize that justice will flow. It will flow to every part of society. If some of you have a heart for sex trafficking victims and other marginalized communities, I think that if we look back at just last year alone, we can see that the Black American community suffered a tremendous amount of trauma. And so if once we learn and make it part of our norm, to advocate and stand for justice, we will see the justice of heaven, of the kingdom, in a tangible way, not in a far off conceptual way, but in a tangible way, start to flow into every part of our society.
Amen.
Agreed.
I like that.
Well, thank you both. We are getting some more questions, but we only have a few minutes here. So I'll try to send those to you separately. But Ezekiel, if you have any last remarks or closing thoughts, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it sometimes feels weird talking about, Black issues when you're not just only talking amongst a Black audience. And I think it's great that we're trying to normalize this conversation. Like, we should not be cringing to hear, like, okay, this is what we're going through. These are our issues. Like, because to be honest, if we can't, from going back to the beginning, if we can't personalize it, if we can't own these issues as ours, there's no way that we'll fight for them. There's no way that we'll stand up for them, because it doesn't hurt us. It's like, that's their problem. But until we can normalize this stuff and say, oh no, heck no, they're not about to like do my brother wrong, because that's my brother. And until we can, and for each other, if we can't empathize on both sides and see, hey, this is where someone's misunderstanding. Let me give grace to the misunderstanding. Let me give, like, we come in with like all guns loaded. Like, if you can't understand me, die. Like, no, like, that people need time and grace to understand. And I think we need to be willing to open that door and to sit at that table for as long as it takes, for those who are willing. Some people say, no, man, they could watch Google. They could watch. I'm not with that. Like, if someone is saying, like, I don't understand it, this is how I was raised, like, sometimes it takes time to peel off, those blinders and the veils. And so we have to be willing to come to that table, to be patient on both sides, to learn and understand, and not be so willing to throw up our defenses to say, oh, that's not true. That's not what you're going through. Toughen up. Or that's not what so you're privileged. And like, if we shouldn't come to the table with attacks, we should come to the table to say, hey, look, this is where we are, and we need you. We need you. We need you. We need you to see us, and we need to be willing and open to see a heart that's willing to come to that table of that conversation, and not just only want to attack and not only want to be on the defensive, for both sides. So I'll say that.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining Chapel today. Ezekiel, if you would like, I have two more questions here. If you got a few more minutes, we can, stay on and answer those questions. So let me know. But thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully the conversation was productive and you learned something about Black people, Black culture, Black history. So have a great day. And Ezekiel, I have two more questions. Are you good with that?
I'm gonna answer them kind of quickly because I do have to pick up my kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
One's about dating advice. What advice
Okay.
would you give to Simpson students seeking purposeful and healthy dating relationships?
Okay, dating advice. Woo! I mean, we're in a crazy time when it comes to men and women. I really think, like, humility is something that I definitely see lacking. I don't see a lot of grace, and I don't see a lot of humility. A lot of people want the perfect package. And then there are a lot of people that have been so used to brokenness that they're willing to settle for anything. I think finding that balance to say, hey, look, I know my worth and I'm not going to give myself to anything. That's one. And on the other side, it's like, man, what people appreciate about me and my wife, like, I don't know if they would have been able to appreciate it the same way 15 years ago as God was still building us. And so understand that whoever God is going to lead you to, 10 years from then, there's so much that God will want to do. There's so much impact to be had that, like, don't be petty. Don't be petty. Like, his shoes were dirty though. I hate his haircut. He needs braces. Or she, man, she's 20 pounds overweight. Like, you do not, like, man, I'm like, dude, like, you do not know, like, time and maturity. Like, there are people that are going to be in deep, I'll just say this, there are people that are going to be in deep regret 10 years from now, and I'm going to love it. No, but seriously, like, there are people that are going to hate what God does with people 10 years from now because they were so petty. They just was like, man, like, I can't deal with someone who had, you know, a gap in their teeth. Like, let's mature, let's not be petty, but let's also not compromise our standards. So just want to say that.
What did you say, Ezekiel? Last time you were here, you said nobody cares if you're cute, but you're broke, right? Cuteness don't cure brokenness.
No, I said a big booty doesn't pay the bills. I'm sorry. Can I say that on this? One time I got in trouble when I said that because somebody said, well, if you think about it, possibly. But no, it's like, you know, there's more to it than just the looks and the body. Like, there has to be more that we're coming to the table seeking for. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Last question is, how can this all relate and impact our relationship and walk with the Lord?
How can what? Well, everything we talked about?
Yeah. Minus the relationship stuff. How does all of that relate to, you know, our personal relationships with the Lord?
Oh man, like, I think that if we think that our relationship with the Lord only looks vertical, then we're tripping. Like, our relationship with the Lord should inform our relations with everyone else. Like, we are vessels. That means we should expect to be poured into by the Lord, filling us with his love, filling us with his truth, filling us with his character, so that we can emanate that character in our day-to-day lives. Like, so I want people to know that, like, you cannot divide the two. You can't say, but I gotta focus on Jesus, and I'm gonna I'm gonna ignore these issues on justice. I'm gonna ignore these issues about, you know, the tension that exists between, you know, my family and how we think. No, like, it should inform and it should change the way we relate, and it should challenge us more than anything to move differently, because we cannot allow this God that transcends time and space, that loves with this abundant love, to actually operate within us and not see that emanating and permeating in our lives as we speak, as we think, as we fellowship, and as we stand for what we stand for. So yeah, we're going, as you're being filled, as you're being taught, as you're learning and you're growing, it should show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, that's all the questions. Thank you so much for letting us pick your brain. Thank you for your wisdom and your time. And thank you to the 124 people that stayed on and listened.
That's dope. I love it, man. I appreciate you, Paulos. Thank you, Deja, for the great questions, and everybody that stayed to listen. Appreciate you guys. Whenever you want me back, just, you know, knock on Paulo's door. We'll make it happen.
Hey,
Got it. Have a great day.
Appreciate you, man. Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
All right, peace.
All right, guys, that does it for Chapel today. Thank you for staying 6 minutes past the time. We bless you all in the name of Jesus, and we pray that you guys have an amazing day. And yeah, we just be met with unexpected surprises and good news and gifts and all that stuff. In Jesus' name, amen. Bless y'all.